Commissioner Rodriguez Ceja,
Present.
Commissioner Isiano,
Present.
Commissioner Fajardo. Commissioner Fajardo is absent today. Vice Chairperson Lopez.
Present.
Chairperson Franz is absent today.
At this time, if we can have the Pledge of Allegiance, if Commissioner Ceja can do the side, please.
Absolutely.
Okay, and do we have any public comments that are not on the agenda?
There are none.
Okay, seeing that there's none, so we'll move to item 4.1, Planning Commission So this time will be set aside for public comment for items not on the agenda. If you can please give it to Ms. Mendoza. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So yes, I would like to bring up a concerning matter that regarding the fact that there's not a barrier off of I saw it's like off the expressway, but when you off of Golf Center Drive, when you make a right to go into the entrance into Fantasy Springs Casino, that road that takes you, it's like there's like a fence. I have a video, so because I was capturing just some homework I was doing, and so there's a fence that's kind of like toppling over, and that's like the only barrier. So if you guys saw an accident that happened today on the expressway, it was a rollover. If it wasn't for that barrier between the freeway, it would have gone onto the oncoming traffic. So, I'm out of breath because I was running. But my point is that that is very concerning, and then especially if you drive more into, and I have images I took as well that I captured. If you drive into and that first stop sign where you have the entrance to Fantasy Springs and there's a parking lot and to your left, meaning the space, there's like a grass area, but the space between you and the freeway is like no more than 20 feet. And so if like something, so I feel like that is a very urgent priority concern, and if there's a way to allocate funding for that, I think. And another thing I've also recognized or witnessed is it's very dangerous, especially because I drive with the little one, going onto the freeway entrance on Jackson and Monroe. Going onto the freeway, there's always diesel semi all the time. I have to either like speed up and like sometimes go like a little faster than I would like, and or just like completely slow down, which is dangerous if there's cars, oncoming traffic behind me. If I get hit, it would be their fault. But again, it's something that's, and then I would like to say that I've also seen a lot of parked semi trucks on the parking lot, or not even the parking lot, but just like the empty lot that's there adjacent to the Walmart off of Avenue 42 in Indio. They're late at night because I'm assuming they're tired, they want to rest. So I'm a resident of Indio, but I'm also a community organizer with Communities for New California, and I also represent CNC on AB 617. So I'm very aware of and that diesel emissions, diesel mobile sources are one of our 6 air priorities that's outlined in the SERP. And so I think it'd be really prudent for the city to take a look at that, working with the Sustainability Commission, perhaps looking at possibly somewhere to have those semis and like something about safety and those issues. I'd be happy to contribute my time to work on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more other public comments? Okay, seeing that there are none, let's go ahead and move to item number 4 with minutes. Planning Commission minutes of January 10th meeting.
Approved those yesterday.
Okay, take this off. Thank you.
I was just going to ask that.
Next item is our public hearing item, case file number DR 22-12-517. So we'll go ahead and start with the staff report.
Good evening, Planning Commission. For the record, Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. To start this evening, I'm going to give you some kind of overlying thoughts about the regulatory context that we're operating in. I think it's important for the benefit of the Commission and interested parties. So we operate in different regulatory contexts as it relates to affordable housing in the state of California. What I mean by that is over the last roughly 10 years, the state of California, specifically the state legislature, has methodically and consistently removed local control options on the regulating of affordable housing. So as we speak to you this evening, we are speaking from a position of looking at compliance under the guise and under the authority of the laws that have been passed by the state legislature. And what I mean by that is that it is very hard, if not almost impossible, for a local government anywhere in the state of California to deny an affordable housing project. If they meet the objective design standards of a local municipality, then for all intents and purposes, a local municipality has to approve them. If they fail to approve them, they do so at legal risk. And that means a potential lawsuit, and that means impact to not just the city itself, but the property owners and the taxpayers of the city of Indio or any other municipality. So we are looking at this through a different lens. It's a different lens than you might look through market-based housing, and it's a different lens than you might want to look at. But unfortunately, the Assistant City Attorney and I have the distinction and the dubious role of being the proverbial gatekeepers this evening and reminding you if necessary, and we do that with respectfully, but we may have to remind you of the limitations of your review this evening. And that's just a truth and a reality that every local government, city or county face in the state of California. So with that in mind, I wanted to make sure that, that the Commission understands that when we apply the rules and regulations that have been adopted by the City of Indio, and specifically the City Council with assistance and advice from you as their land use advisory body, in certain instances, those rules and regulations may not apply. I will say that we have worked with this particular applicant, and they have striven to be compliant where they can. It would certainly be within their right to push back. It would certainly be within their right to say that they don't want to do something, and state law would back them up. I also have to point out that while this project is large, it could be much larger. They did not exercise the density bonus options available under state law. Had they chosen to, there would have been more units, and there would have been likely taller buildings. So I do want to recognize that the applicant worked to be sensitive to the neighbors around them, worked to be sensitive to the city, but also did try to balance that with the goals that they have as being a 100% affordable housing project. And again, it does give them certain rights and provisions that if this was a market rate housing project, I would not be saying these words to you. The Assistant City Attorney wouldn't be ready to give legal advice if necessary, because it is just a different construct. So I thought it was important for you to have that overall regulatory context, because it will guide us this evening as we go through this process. So with that, I'm going to grab the remote. I'll be right back and go through a presentation. I do want to add one additional point. I don't say these words lightly. I'm a big fan of local control. I do believe it's the right of local governments to represent the interests of their citizens. But when the state legislature makes changes in law that are applicable to every municipality in the state of California, we are not exempt from that. The Coachella Valley does not exist in an island. The reaches of state government do extend to us. So please understand, when I am talking about the limitations of local control, I do it begrudgingly. Not the happiest statements I make, because I am a supporter of local control, but nevertheless, you as a decision-making body need to be aware of these legal constraints. And my esteemed colleague could go in much more detail and give you all the legal citations, but I think the best way to say it is, While our hands aren't fully tied, they're pretty well tied. So, okay, with that, I'm going to jump in to a presentation, and if I am speaking too fast or if there's something that's not clear, please do stop me, and certainly at the end can answer any questions for you. The applicant is in attendance this evening, both in person and virtually. They do have a presentation for you as well, so when you open the public hearing, they will provide you with their thoughts and considerations, but at this point, I'm just going to go through it for you. So as you're aware, this is the Liberty Starfield's affordable housing project. It is a project that is proposed along Highway 111. It's approximately 900 feet west of Dr. Carrion and Highway 111 where that intersection occurs. And it is within the boundaries of the Highway 11 corridor specific plan. And so when we are able to apply the regulations of the city, we apply it from that vantage point. This is a plan that this commission worked on and made advisory recommendations to the city council, and ultimately the city council adopted. And that was in September of 2022. So this is the site, again, about 900 feet west of Dr. Carrion and Highway 111. It's that blue dot on the map. It is also close to the Coachella Valley Water District Irrigation Canal. So to orient you, it's on the south side of Highway 111. And at the extreme right-hand corner of that map is the parking lot for Mathis Brothers. So this is the project site plan. I'm going to take a minute and walk you through this. So this project has two primary buildings and also has that are multi-story, and I'll go into that in a minute. And then it also has a single-story commercial building. So the two primary buildings altogether comprise a total of 206 units. And the number of units vary from 1 bedroom, 1 bath to 3 bedroom, 2 bath. The applicant has strove to provide adequate on-site parking that meets the parking need of the project and complies with our parking standards. And the density of this project is currently 36.8 units, which was in the range of no more than 40 dwelling units to the acre. Now, that's more dwelling units per acre than the city is normally used to. But that density is consistent with the City of Indio general plan, which adopted a vision for this corridor having more density and allowed up to 40 dwelling units per acre. So it's within that 40 dwelling units per acre. It also allows for verticality or vertical buildings. And so as you remember back, for those that were present as part of the general plan or those that have reviewed it, this is envisioned as a much more dense, much more intense, and much more vertical corridor from Jefferson Street to Indio Boulevard. The Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan implements the general plan. It looks at this particular site as a combination of 3 different zoning designations, consisting of mixed-use corridor, neighborhood general, and neighborhood low. And that literally goes from north to south in terms of where those designations apply. So the goal of those designations, particularly as you get closer to Highway 111, is to create a pedestrian-oriented, mixed-use corridor look and feel. As you move further south, it looks to transition. Now, this is where I have to throw up that proverbial state regulations and state law and action of the legislature. If this was an affordable housing project, if it was not an affordable housing project, we would be talking about these transitions more directly, and there would be more concerted effort to apply these transitions in terms of basically walking down the density and the intensity. And that's what the plan calls for, the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. However, because this is a 100% affordable housing project, those standards do not apply. So when you see the verticality, when you see the intensity, and it goes further south into the site, it's because it can. Because, again, the state legislature has limited local control. So our ability to say that you have to step down the density and the intensity is not available to us. So there is a project landscape plan, And the applicant has worked to provide diverse landscaping throughout the project. The applicant does, again, meet the intent of the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. But again, even if they did not, we would be limited in our ability to establish large landscape buffers, particularly on the southern portion of the site. And again, I'm emphasizing this because it's important to understand the limitations on your decision-making board, authority as a board empowered by the City Council to make decisions. And for the benefit of the public, the Planning Commission is the decision maker this evening, and there is no additional review by City Council unless the project is appealed to City Council. So whatever decision the Commission takes this evening is technically the final decision, with one caveat. If for some reason the Planning Commission did not vote in favor of the project, or if they did vote in favor of the project, within the adopted codes of the City Council by a majority can call up the decision of the Planning Commission and or the director, my position, for review. And they can hold a separate process and they can make an alternate decision. That's written into City Code. So just want to make sure that the Commission understands that. Normally, you are the last stop on the train, so to speak, unless there's an appeal. There will be an appeal, or that call for review is what it's called. And those are the two options where it may go past you if either one of those occurred. So again, the applicant has worked to provide diverse landscaping. This is desert appropriate landscaping. It's a diverse mixture of shrubs, vegetation, and trees throughout the site. These are different images showing you, and as you look at the site plan, you're going to see that the applicant has developed for each building multiple courtyards for respite areas for residents of the buildings, and then they have a common pool area which is shown on this particular plan, and that's also where they have a pool building and a mail building, so individuals can go and enjoy a pool atmosphere and or collect their mail or do both. So now we get to the verticality. So as shown on these plans, this is a 4-story building complex. Now typically 4 stories you would think 40 feet. This is slightly taller. The reason is that because there is a area between the top of the ceiling on the 4th level and the top of the roof line where they are going to be putting mechanical equipment, so heating and air cooling equipment. They're also going to be installing required fire access, and they're also going to have by building code, what they call various separation areas for release of heat in other areas. So while this is a 4-story building, it goes approximately 11 feet over, and that is allowed by City Code. It is allowed by building code, and again, this also would be allowed under the affordable housing regulations that apply to this project passed by the state. As you can see, the design is modern. The applicant has listened to staff in terms of the feedback we've gotten from the commission over here with a more modern design aesthetic, use of colors, differentiation. They also are looking to avoid a monolithic wall by having various or varying wall sections. So you'll see that some walls jut out, some are set back, and the idea is that it's just not one uniform wall that can create kind of a drab monolithic look. So the applicant did heed and listen to staff's advice about how to design the building. Many of the units have balconies to provide a private respite area in addition to the more what I'll call public respite areas that are available to residents of the buildings, and as well as the pool area. Again, some additional building elevations that are shown. Each building is accessed by a common lobby, and each building will have elevators. So there will be, rather than you might experience with a garden or walk-up style apartment, this is a common entrance apartment. This is, for lack of a better word, a much more urban style of design, fairly common in many cities if you travel to, where you might go into an apartment building with a common entrance, common lobby, and then shared elevators that take you to different floors of the building. As I mentioned, there are some other buildings on the property. You will, as I mentioned, there's the pool and mailroom building. There is also a commercial building that is centered roughly in the northeast corner of the site, and is intended to have a future operator or operators that could operate in there. So when the applicant started talking with the city, this was before the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan had been adopted. And at that time, the mixed-use specific plan, the previous specific plan that was applicable to this property, required that there be mixed use. So the applicant worked to have mixed use. When we adopted, or when the City Council adopted upon your recommendation the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, that requirement for mixed use was not universal. They had the choice, if they chose, to remove that commercial component. They chose to keep it in. They may share with you this evening in their testimony about any potential users. At this time, based on information provided to staff, we are not aware of any potential users of that building, but they may have some information for you. Again, just showing the various elevations. Again, they're using a combination of wall modulation, color, glazing or window effect to minimize that overall monolithic flat wall effect, so that there is a certain design quality, design aesthetic. This is a rendering showing an overall aerial view. Now this would be taken if you were looking at the site, looking down from the northeast. So in front is Highway 111. The commercial building that I mentioned, and I should have mentioned earlier, there's also a leasing building, my apologies, but the commercial building that I mentioned is shown in the foreground. There is a leasing building behind that, and then ultimately the pool and mail building. As I've previously stated, there are two primary apartment unit buildings, one that is in a north-south orientation and the other that's in an east-west orientation. Throughout the site, the applicant has a combination of surface and carport parking spaces. A number of the carports are intended to be have solar attached to them. Again, the applicant can discuss that with you further in terms of their plans. But overall, the project, in summary, does meet, and I apologize, here's another rendering. A couple more renderings. Here's the project materials board showing the colors I mentioned earlier. So as I've been saying throughout, the project is compliant, and that's probably the best way to describe it. It's compliant. It complies with the general plan. It complies with the housing element. As this commission should remember, since it's only been a year since we went through the housing element process, the City of Indio was obligated to plan for 7,812 new housing units, of which 2,963 had to be affordable. So this project helps the city meet that statutory obligation. The project is also compliant with the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, and it is either outright compliant or can be made compliant with conditions of. In terms of the environmental review, when the city adopted the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, it made what was called a finding of consistency for that specific plan based on the completion of what's called a program final environmental impact report for the general plan. Projects that go forward under the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, if they can be deemed to be found consistent, or what we call a finding of consistency can be made, then there is no additional environmental review that has to be done, and this project qualified for that determination. So again, with the application of conditions of approval, and there is an extensive amount of conditions of approval in the resolution that is before you this evening for your consideration, we do believe that the project is compliant. Again, conditions of approval are binding, and they must be adhered to if ultimately the decision of the Planning Commission this evening is to approve the project. I want to go back and talk about one more thing, because it's probably going to come up, and it's, I know, potentially a concern. This project has one in and out access off of Highway 111. Now, in the city of Indio and many other communities, it's fairly typical to have multiple access points. It's not required, but it's typical. In this particular instance, knowing that there was only one legal means of in and out access, we could not require the applicant to go onto other people's property. We could not require the applicant to negotiate access through other people's property. That's not legal. Our assistant city attorney would tell you all the reasons why. But what we did do at the outset, knowing there was only one access point in and out of this property, we did work with the applicant and the applicant's team to design the in and out access in such a way that it met both fire code standards and also public work engineering standards. Now, our assistant fire marshal could not be here this evening, but he did provide to us, and we handed out to you this evening, what is called the technical policy. And that's what guided him in his review of this project. And as you look at the project site plan, you'll see that it is somewhat of a different design at the entrance point. And what I mean by that is that if you're coming into the site, you are not going straight into the site. You are making a serpentine movement, you're veering to the right, and you're going around a raised curb section. And the goal of that is to pull you away from that access point. So if there are multiple vehicles that are accessing at one time, you're quickly pulled away and out of the, so to speak, line of access. And then this will be a gated access project, which are allowed in the city. The applicant has shared with us that it's their intent to only close the gate at night, so it will be open during the day. But individuals who are accessing it and have to stop at the gated access, there is enough room that we can have what we call multiple vehicles queuing or stacking. The out access is a very straight linear access out. Anyone coming out of this project is only able to make a right turn out. Anyone coming into this project is only able to make a right turn in. We did not allow them to break the median, and which would have allowed for left turn movements. So that median stays. It's not going to be broken in terms of allowing left turn movements, which could create traffic safety issues. So residents, visitors, individuals who may want to access the commercial piece at some point, they will all be obligated to either turn out right or turn in right. So I want to make sure that that's clear, that this was extensively looked at. We understood the concern. It is different than maybe folks are used to in Indio, but it does meet the technical standards adopted by the city council and or the technical individuals, i.e. city engineer and or fire marshal, who oversee the implementation of the rules in those respective areas. So I want to make sure that it's clear to the commission that that was thoughtfully considered. We are confident that this is functional and we are comfortable with its overall operational safety. So with that, to close things up, staff is recommending that you approve Resolution 2081, which will conditionally approve this project. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And again, the applicant and the applicant's representative, the applicant representative and the applicant's team is in attendance both in person and virtually this evening and can respond to any questions and concerns you might have following their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions for Director Schneider?
Do you mind if I just do a quick review? So I just wanted to say, since 2007, the state of California has grappled with a housing shortage, and the state has used this crisis to impose greater and greater restrictions on local land use controls. There is no area where that is more apparent than low-income housing developments. For example, compliant applications are, quote, deemed approved upon their submission, as opposed to being considered and potentially approved, which is what market rate housing proposals are considered under. Furthermore, the city has to provide concrete health and safety bases to amend proposals. And so I just wanted to highlight that as we go forward to have this conversation with the applicant. I could go on and on about this area of law, but I just wanted to pull out a couple of key provisions that I felt were important to consider as we go forward and listen to the applicant's presentation.
Actually, I have a question for you, Jillian, maybe, or Kevin. This is for my education. I know that we have a standard where every 500 to 600 feet, we need to have an opening for pedestrian access when it's gated. Does that not apply for these types of projects? Is that?
It is a policy of the general plan. We do not prohibit gated accesses, and you are correct, every 500 to 600 feet. So if, for example, there was a long section of a wall that was installed, and you've actually seen this in some of the projects that come before the commission, at approximately 600 feet, they would have to install a pedestrian gate. And in some of the larger subdivisions we've looked at, there will be multiples of these. In this instance, because the frontage of the project is substantially less than 600 feet, they're not obligated to. And I think the applicant can explain to you how they intend to facilitate pedestrian access. But from a legal standpoint, we could not mandate that requirement, although there is a pedestrian access opportunity, but it's something that is being provided by the applicant for the design of their project.
Kevin, I have a question. When you go back to the presentation, the parcels that are next to this development, can you speak to what we have planned or what's it's zoned for, so I have a understanding, and so does the public?
That's a great question. Thank you, Vice Chair. So the property to the immediate west, you've actually seen recently. It was a proposal for a car wash. You actually recommended denial to the City Council of that project. This is a project, the council, in the passing the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, did identify certain types of projects they wanted to be the final decision maker on. They included car washes, drive-through restaurants, gas stations, and convenience markets. So you saw that project, you recommended denial. Subsequently, we've been notified that the applicant has withdrawn. So we do not anticipate that project also had mixed-use corridor zoning designation on it, but it wasn't as deep as the project under consideration tonight, so it did not have any of those subsequent zoning designations. The property to the immediate east is actually owned by the City of Indio. It was a piece of property that was given to the city more than 20 years ago. It is currently a landlocked parcel. That property could be developed at some point for whatever purpose, perhaps housing. But at this point, no development is planned for that. And then the parcels that are further up adjacent to Highway 111, there's a number of businesses there, existing businesses. They've been there quite a while, actually. They'll also have that mixed-use corridor zoning. So at some point, when the market decides that there's a higher and better use for those properties than what they're currently being utilized for, then they would have to be compliant with the Highway 11 corridor specific plan in whatever iteration it is at that time.
And you said that it's zoned for, you said mixed commercial?
It's mixed-use corridor, which is a combination. It could be commercial. It can be straight commercial, meaning just commercial by itself. It can be mixed use, so it could be housing and commercial. It could be housing only, like this project, absent if they had decided not to go forward with the commercial component, it could be just housing only. So in the plan that you helped ultimately adopt, the corridor looks at it from a flexibility standpoint. This corridor is seen by both the general plan, the housing element, and the Highway 11 corridor specific plan as a recipient for significant amount of housing. But there are other uses that can be considered along with housing.
And I think for my final question, the property to the, what is it? The south, sorry, I'm doing my map here. South of that, could you kind of, again, for the record, what is that? Those are homes, correct?
Right,
What
so the
development is that?
properties to the south is an existing single-family neighborhood. It's called Las Brisas North. It was developed under something we don't do anymore, but back in a number of years ago, we did what's called project master plans. And they were basically detailed master plans for certain areas of the city. So that actually has a project master plan that it was developed to. It is existing single family, and it does abut this particular area of the city. Density is roughly in the range of about 4 dwelling units per acre, roughly.
Thank you, Director Snyder. Any further questions for the director before we open up for public comments? Okay, seeing that there's number, go ahead and open up. We'll be calling up. If you'd like to fill up a request to speak, please do so. And so for the first public comments, request to speak, it's Ms. Dodie Hedge.
Chair, we typically reserve the opportunity to let the applicant
Oh,
speak.
that's right. Sorry about that.
Since the applicant has a presentation.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I
Not a
got ahead
problem.
of myself here.
So
Will
I
you
think-
please have the applicant come up and with your presentation?
Yes, I think it's Olivia Platt, and she's coming forward, and they do have a presentation, so we might just need a minute to load that presentation.
Sure.
Oh, thank you. I'm Olivia Platt. Thank you, Kevin, for the presentation, and to the planning commissioners for being here tonight to review the project. Do we have Keith from KTGY? Yeah, okay. So while we can speak a lot about the technicals and what this site is, I think what's important is the story and how this project came about. About 2 years ago, I was personally looking at this site and I said, there's 5.6 acres here. We could build something really special. Now, to other developers, really special could mean different things, but for us, it meant right away affordable housing, especially considering more than 60% of Indio renters are rent burden. And in terms of building something special, the first meeting with my design team, from landscape to architect, it was very important to us that we said, what the affordable housing that we're building, when you're driving down Highway 111, you cannot tell that it's affordable. It has to be just as beautiful as a market rate development. And I hope that you could really see that from the drawings and you can appreciate what they've put together here. So that was first. And even our landscape architect has actually worked on another project in Indio that is not affordable. And their landscape design that they have put together here was very mindful to make this a very beautiful and aesthetic site. In terms of what we're building here beyond just the physical buildings, really it's a focus on community. And what hasn't been mentioned is that the majority of these apartments are 3-bedroom apartments as well as 2-bedroom apartments. About 50% are 2s and 3s. And that population that we're targeting in terms of affordable is large families, and families that can now live in safe and stable housing where they previously might not have had that. And beyond just building these 2 and 3-bedroom apartments and building community, we also will have programming that is available for this community to really support that. If you look at our site, we have multiple play areas within our site as well, so kids have a place to play. They have it's not just 200 families kind of lumped together. You have individual places that you can play in recreational areas. In addition to a main area, that leasing building is actually as well an amenity building. And there are educational opportunities there, resume building. It really is comprehensive where you can assist families from generation to generation, where typically maybe you might have grandparents living with parents and a grandchild. You have programming that might address all 3 generations. And that to me I think is fairly significant. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Keith from KTGY. He's our architect. I could stand here, or is he's able to loop in?
Thanks, Olivia. Can everyone hear me okay?
We could hear you.
Okay, great. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about our project tonight. I will be going over some of the fine points of the project. Director Schneider gave a very thorough presentation, so I don't want to be redundant, and we'll be looking at a lot of the same images here. But looking at the site plan that you see before us, a few things I wanted to point out. Again, it's 206 units, which are located in the 2 4-story buildings you see labeled Building A and Building B. And then the commercial building, which is that kind of peach color up on Highway 111, and then the golden buildings there, which are also 1-story leasing amenity buildings and pool building that Olivia was just describing. First, maybe to talk about the footprint of the buildings and why they're laid out the way they are. One, the buildings themselves. You heard Kevin describe in his presentation as we were looking at the architecture. that buildings were broken up to not only avoid flat elevations, but long elevations with no breaks on them. So what we've done, you can see this kind of serpentine building form with alternating access to courtyards between, from one side to the other, going back and forth on the long side of the buildings. That does two things. One is provides access into those courtyards from both sides, different exposures, offers a different experience, but also, as he pointed out, breaks up the building to make the buildings feel less massive and more interesting. Second, I'd like to point out the where we've located and how we've located the main leasing and amenity area there. We feel this is really going to be the hub of the community and the most active area. So we've moved it central to the project, but also off of all property lines, so that it's, we're respecting the people that live behind us, as well as whatever may go in to the east. And then it's pulled away from the building A there and building B, so that you can make as much noise as you want out there and you're not going to disturb either the neighbors or the people that live there. Also, the way we've oriented and situated building B in the rear, the way we've utilized the parking in the back there to create as much separation as possible from the single-family neighbors to the south. Let's go to the next slide, please. Let's go through a few views, and again, these are the views you've already seen, but this is the view on Highway 111, looking from the northeast corner that shows the commercial building, which we're not sure what the use is, but there's possible educational uses that to benefit the community there. If you look at the plan, there's a play area associated with it. And then between there and the building A, the 4-story building you see fronting on the right, is that gated entry that Kevin was describing. Next slide, please. And here's that aerial view, again, looking from the northeast, and you can see how that leasing and amenity area with the pool and playground and dog park is really the kind of the hub of the community, but how it's centrally located away from the adjacent properties and the buildings on our site. I won't go into detail about the actual amenities. When I'm done here, I'll pass it over to our landscape architect and she can go through that. Next slide, please.
I'll get to Amanda.
That's okay. So next slide, please. Again, here's that view from the northeast corner adjacent to the empty lot. And you can see there how that not only are we making small movements within the architecture, both with materials, color, and undulation on the facade, but then there's also that major break in the middle to break up this longer facade. Next slide, please. And then finally, this one, which shows the relationship of the building and how we are set back from the adjacent single-family neighbors, and how we've taken great care. We've got carports and trees lining that back property line, which again, landscape architect will describe in more detail. And then next slide, please. Maybe these are a little higher resolution than what Kevin presented, but you can see the amount of material change and movement on the buildings here. This is, as I said, both buildings A and building B are identical. So what you're looking at here is on the top, you can see the overall. This would be the long side. In this case, it's the east side of building A and the south side of building B. So that top building is top elevation you see is the overall building, and then it's broken down into larger scale, the elements down below, and you can really see how things are broken down there. The amount of different materials, colors, we've got stucco, cementitious siding, metal storefront, and then obviously different color stucco to really break down the larger mass into smaller pieces. I think the next one is similar, so you can skip over that unless you have any questions. And then you can see here on the smaller buildings, both the leasing and amenity building and the pool building, which is behind that, utilizing the same color palette and material palette to make it all tie together, not cutting any corners here, and it'll really make that central amenity area something the community can be proud of. And then next slide, I think is the commercial building. Again, you can see that on the bottom, that's the elevation facing Highway 111. So with the amount of storefront we've got there, it will really help to activate the frontage there and make a very pedestrian-friendly experience there along Highway 111. Next, you can see the palette of materials we're using there. I won't go to detail on them, but again, if you have any questions afterward. And then finally, okay, this is where I will pass it off to Amanda Croswell with MJS Landscape Architects. Amanda, take it away.
Hi, thank you, Keith. Good evening, everyone. I'm the project landscape architect, as Keith said, and I'll walk you through this portion of our outdoor amenities. This first slide is some lifestyle imagery we like to start with, just to give you an idea of the look and feel of these outdoor amenity spaces as we move through them in greater detail. Next slide, please. Again, this is just to give you a few extra information. The east and west property lines will have a 6-foot-high tubular steel fence with a 50-foot on-center stucco pilasters. And then the property line on the south will be the existing homeowner wall. Along the wall, we are proposing, there will be a section that demonstrates this in greater detail, but we are proposing some fast-growing trees along the southern property line to mitigate any views from the adjacent homeowners. Next slide, please. This is our central courtyard, our pool courtyard. It contains a 50-foot lap pool and a small wading pool, restrooms and pool equipment room on the south side, and a nice patio off of the club room to the north that includes barbecue and outdoor dining. Next slide, please. All of our courtyards are unique in design, but they all have similar function, from outdoor lounge. As you can see, there's outdoor lounge that utilizes umbrellas and specimen trees for shade. The northern is for outdoor dining, and the southern courtyard shown here has a small tot lot that will be shaded. Next slide. Again, similar to Building A, the courtyards here in Building B have lounge spaces. The one in the middle is our outdoor dining courtyard, and the one on the right side has a multi-purpose lawn area for the residents. And all of these courtyards are gated. They are fenced and gated, just to point that out. Next slide. So here's this section I mentioned before, just to demonstrate the separation of the building from that southern property line. So we're showing the existing homeowner wall, and the trees that you can see the image. The trees that we're proposing along that wall are they're melaleucas, they're paper bark trees. They're beautiful, fast-growing trees, and they'll reach about 45 feet tall by the 5-year mark. Moving inwards, the parking lot tree we have shown there is a mesquite, and they're bigger, beautiful branching trees. Those will be around the 35-foot tall mark at about 5 years. And then just to show you what we're proposing against the facade of the building is the shoestring acacia, again, another vertical tree that is fast growing. Those will be at 35 feet tall by the 5-year mark as well. Next. And then this is our desert appropriate plant palette that includes trees and our preliminary shrub palette.
Is that it?
That's it.
Do you have any questions for our design team or development team?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the presentation. think that was the most detailed landscape presentation I've seen in the going on 3 years. I am the tree guy. Shade is
Okay, good.
it's been my personal vendetta because it is a need in our community. So I just want to say thank you for letting us know about the trees, the sizes. Also, I saw you are going above what the tree size needs to be when installed, so that you've already have some pretty grown trees. So thank you for doing that. I'm curious about the parking lot and the structures that will have solar. How many of those are covered, and then how is the solar impacting? Energy is a problem here in our city and across the valley, so I'm curious about the sustainability thought behind the solar, if you could speak on.
Is Keith still here? And how many are covered and having solar as well?
Yes, I'm here. Right now, we're showing the plan approximately 98 covered spaces. We haven't run calcs to see how much energy that would calculate at this point, and that'll be something that, as the project goes forward, we'll work with solar consultants and figure all that out.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that was really my only question for you.
Quick question also on the landscaping on the trees. I believe you had stated that you would utilize mesquites along the southern border near the masonry wall built for the. Are there any other trees that you would consider rather than mesquite, being that mesquite can overgrow and kind of grow over their walls possibly? Maybe something that will reach a height of 35 feet but yet not spread out so much?
Amanda?
Yeah, so the mesquites we're proposing will go into the fingers in the parking lot. So those will be away from the wall. The trees we're proposing to go directly adjacent to the wall are more vertical in form. Those are the Melaleuca, the paper bark trees. But if we can absolutely take that into account if another specimen of tree is needed for the fingers of the parking lot trees.
Thank you.
If I could, Chair, just quickly, one of the things we can enforce is whatever ultimately the landscape is approved for, we can enforce the obligations of that landscape plan, and we can also enforce it not negatively impacting adjacent properties. So if there was a situation described by the commissioner where there was overgrowth over property lines, that is an enforcement issue that we could bring to bear. We certainly would work with the applicant to make sure that they're aware of that and give them a reasonable time frame to adjust it. And then if not, similar to how we do code enforcement, then there would be follow-up action by our code enforcement division.
Our landscape team, as you could see, is very well versed in all kinds of trees, so I'm sure we can make every.
Any further questions before we move on to public comments? Okay, let's go ahead and open it for public comments. So we'll go ahead and start. If you'd like to speak, please fill out a request to speak form and hand it over to Ms. Mendoza. You have 3 minutes to speak, and for the first speaker, we have Ms. Dodie Hetch. You can please come up to the podium. Sorry.
Good evening. Again, my name is Dodie Hecht, and I want to thank you for letting me speak with you tonight and share my concerns regarding the proposed project. I appreciate what Kevin presented and what the property owner or applicant has said tonight, and I understand it is compliant. However, is it right? Is it going to work for everyone? Per the Planning Commission staff report, the proposed plan is a 4-story low-income housing apartment complex, but it indicates that it's 51 feet tall at its highest peak. We bought our home wanting to look at the mountains across. That is going to be taken away from us. This is substantially taller than our single-family homes there in Las Brisas North. In Section 3.92, that speaks to zone transitions, They specify that buildings located on parcels located adjacent to another zone shall not exceed the allowed height of the neighboring zone by more than 1 story. So if the state wasn't involved and it was a city ordinance, they couldn't go more than 2 stories because we're only 1 story. So it's unfortunate that we are having to suffer because of that. I do ask that the developer, consider going lower than 5 stories, really, with the 51 feet. It's a monstrosity, and so we just asked for some compromise, and I appreciate that they did address some sound or privacy barriers with trees that will be mature in 5 years. In 5 years, my 12-year-old daughter will be 17 and ready to leave home. So that takes me to my next safety concern. As a parent of a 12-year-old daughter, I certainly don't want anyone watching her from above as she swims in our swimming pool. She swims every day. And can you imagine her out there swimming with directly down into our backyard and watching her swim? I don't think anyone would want that for their daughter, their granddaughter, their mother, or their sister to not have that feeling of safety and privacy. Also, that proposed parking is also a safety issue. Yes, they show you it's right up against our wall, and anyone could climb a car, climb a bed of a pickup truck, and climb right directly into our backyard. That really concerns me. Also, my daughter's bedroom is on the back of our house looking into the backyard, and if she has a light on in her bedroom, people are going to be able to see right into her bedroom. Also, no one addressed where the garbage dumpsters are. I believe from my reading that they're going to be on the south side of the property. What's going to be done to eliminate odors, noise, rodents, those type of issues? We ask that maybe they consider replacing those parts with a fire lane. I know, my time is up. I could go on, and I do have more to say.
Thank you.
Anyways, thank you for letting me speak.
Next, we have Amara Odell. Amaya.
Hello, my name is Amaya Odo, and I'm here to talk about my concerns with the plans. I'm not comfortable with the 4-story apartment behind my fence. Because I go swimming every day, I want to feel comfortable with going into my backyard. I want to feel comfortable with not having to look above me and people will be watching me down. I want to be able to have my blinds open. I want to be able to look outside without seeing this building above me. Are lights gonna shine through our backyard? And like my mom said, is there gonna be rodents, like garbage smell, any of that? And if they could lower the stories down to at least a 2-story, that would be great, and maybe push it back further. Thank you for listening to my concerns today.
Thank you. Next, we have Gabriela Mendoza.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gabriela Mendoza, and I live on Avenida Esmeralda along with my neighbors. It is a gated community in North Las Brisas in the city of Indio. I've lived there for the past 15 years. I moved to this community because of the privacy, the sense of security, the actual security, and the peaceful living that we all experience while living there. It is a small single-street community, and that's one of the reasons why we all live there. Yes, I also purchased the home there because of the quiet environment and the great mountain views that I currently enjoy from my backyard. I haven't always lived in a home like this. I actually started out at the farm labor camp. I lived there until I was an adult. And I understand the need for affordable housing. I really do. I've lived in affordable type of housing half of my life. So I can understand and empathize with, in fact, I support affordable housing. It's definitely needed here in Indio. I'm a retired police officer. I retired about 2 years ago now after serving for 33 years as a first a police dispatcher and then a police officer. The last 8 years of which I completed here in Indio. So I retired from Indio Police less than 2 years ago. And I'm very familiar with all of the issues that my neighbors are concerned about, and we can probably spend hours talking about them, but we only have 3 minutes. There's no doubt that my home, my family, my neighbors' homes and families will be negatively impacted by the proposed project. From my professional and personal experience, I can tell you without a doubt that our quality of life is going to be negatively affected. I understand, as I said, the need for affordable housing, and I support it. But I'm also aware that there are multiple options for such development. In fact, in the same general area, there are quite a few vacant lots all along the Highway 111 corridor. There's a great lot that's really close to Indio High School, just behind some of the businesses there off of 111 and Las Palmas Road. If the development must be built in this lot that we're talking about, then I propose single-story buildings, or at the most 2-story buildings, instead of tall 51-foot high buildings. And I also propose a fire lane along the entire south perimeter of the building, directly over the wall of the Las Brisas homeowners now. Not only will that add a layer of safety to us, the current homeowners, but also to the residents of the proposed community. I hope you will consider these recommendations, because multi-story buildings less than 100 feet from my backyard and parking spaces along the wall abutting my backyard are simply not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Modesta Rodriguez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Modesta Rodríguez. Yo vivo aquí en la ciudad de Indio. Yo creo que como madre tengo 2 hijas, una saliendo de la universidad y una de high school. Ellas se van a tener que independizar, van a tener que necesitar a dónde vivir. Por eso creo que este proyecto es muy bueno, es asequible y es algo que necesitamos en la ciudad. Es muy bueno estar cerca de high school, estar cerca de lugares que necesitamos. Por eso creo que este proyecto vendría a beneficiar nuestra ciudad. Gracias.
Gracias. Next we have a Karen.
Good afternoon, commission staff and community members. My name is Karen. I'm a resident of the city of Indio. Before I became a homeowner down the street, I was a renter at an apartment complex, Los Arboles, here on Recua, and then at a home also around my current neighborhood. In 2014, 10 years ago, I was paying $675 for a single bedroom off of Recua. That price has now gone over $1,000 for that same apartment today, 10 years later. I additionally want to say that I support this development, support this project. I also want to say that people who live in low-income housing are not infested, do not smell, are not criminals, are not peeping toms. I also want to share and ask that that Director Snyder believe in market rate apartments like these because they are needed in the community. There is not a single market rate apartment in any of Indio today that is as modern, as nice, and as inclusive as what we've seen here today. So though this is a low-income apartment complex development that you need to abide by state laws, that is for a reason. Indio needs more development because the city of Indio needs to meet its RENA obligations, because the city of Indio has a population that is very, very close to reaching homelessness. And it also has another population that is homeless. With that being said, 6 single-family homes should not prevent the development of 206 units that are not just needed, but required by the City of Indio through state law to comply. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alejandro Mesa Aguilar.
Hi everyone, I'm Alejandro Mesa Aguilar. I'm not personally a resident of the City of Indio, but my sister is. This is why it's a great concern to come out here and speak on this issue. I want to start off and say that while I currently live with family, and I know how difficult it is to obtain affordable housing from seeing my sister deal with rent out here, locals who live here should not struggle to stay here. We do projects like, not specifically Indio, but places like Palm Desert create, the Akashur Arena to keep snowbirds, but what are we doing to keep locals here, especially when it comes to affordable housing? Currently, more than half, about 60% Indio renters are rent burdened, and at least a third severely are rent burdened, spending more than 50% of their income on rent. I understand that there are 6 individuals here who center on themselves and think that this is a great burden to them. But realistically, this is a public good. I don't think that there should be any need to bring the opinion of 6 people to impact, what could be hundreds of people that would need the affordable housing to stay here and be locals here still. Sorry. Adding to what Olivia Plath mentioned earlier about multi-generational homes, according to the American Healthcare Association, 55% of nursing homes are losing money and 72% may not be able to stay open. This was back in 2020, but the impacts are still here, with multi-generational homes being a benefit to multiple community members of various ages. Again, I just want to restate that affordable housing is an essential human right, because housing is an essential human right. Please take your consideration that your decision here will impact those whom you serve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have, is it Leobardo Rodriguez? Leobardo Rodriguez? Okay, we'll come back to him then. Valerie Camacho?
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Valeria Camacho, soy junior en high school y pronto espero ir a la universidad. Deseo poder regresar en unos 5 años a mi comunidad y tener un lugar asequible para vivir y poder independizarme por esta razón.
Can you put the mic down?
Sorry. Again? Okay. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Valeria Camacho, soy junior en high school y pronto espero ir a la universidad. Deseo poder regresar en unos 5 años a mi comunidad y poder tener un lugar asequible donde vivir y poder independizarme. Por esta razón apoyo el programa. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Gracias. Is Mr. Leobardo back? If not, we'll go ahead and move to Annalisa Vargas.
Annalisa, una vez más, residente, y también Jayla. Okay. Jayla wants to speak first. Go ahead. Okay. So, mi nombre es Annalisa Vargas, residente de Indio, y sí quiero dar unos números de cifras que ya mencionaron el señor Snyder. La ciudad de Indio tiene un compromiso a viviendas. Y la verdad es, traigo a mi niña para que todos vean que familias como yo y ella, somos las familias que van a beneficiar de estos proyectos. Okay, y la verdad también que veo aquí es desafortunadamente que en Indio hay como una división entre las personas, como que hay personas que piensan que personas como yo no merecemos vivienda digna. Y como otros han dicho, es un derecho básico humano que no se le debe de negar a nadie, especialmente en este país más rico del mundo. Y escuché a la jovencita Amaya, dijo que cuando mencionaron el tamaño de los árboles, ella dijo que nadie le importa el tamaño de los árboles, pero le quiero decir que sí le importan los tamaños de los árboles a personas como yo, madres como yo, criaturas como mi niña, que hay problema de calidad de aire, personas, niñas como Ana de Salton Sea, que a los 6 años dijo en Sacramento que los árboles son los pulmones del planeta. Y gracias por criaturas como ella, porque ellos son el futuro y podemos aprender mucho de ellos. Gracias.
Thank you. Again,
If someone is speaking about my daughter, I would like to know what they're saying. And she spoke English earlier, and now suddenly she's not speaking English. This is very disturbing that
Unfortunately,
council would allow that.
I apologize, but if the chair wants to allow the speaker to come back up and give comments before the end of the public comment, but we need to have the speaker speak into the microphone part because we're recording and we cannot pick up comments. So if at some point the chair wants to invite the speaker who just spoke up to give comments into the record, we can do that. But that's the chair's prerogative.
if Mr. Leobardo Rodriguez is back. If not, would you like to come back and speak, Miss? Oh, you're no longer here. Okay. Jody, did you want to come back and?
Well, I wanted to address something. I speak a little Spanish, but I don't speak it fluently. My daughter doesn't speak it at all, and I heard her name being mentioned, so if she's being spoken about, we should be able to know what is being said. And the person who mentioned her name was speaking English earlier when she spoke earlier, and so now it's a little disconcerting that the council members would allow that to happen and not everyone be able to understand and hear what is being said. Just my concern.
So, public comments are generally protected by First Amendment protections, and therefore I don't know that there's a recourse for what this public commenter is describing, and I know for a fact we can't force someone to speak a different language as their public comment. While I understand her frustration, there really isn't a legal basis upon which to do this. So the commission can make their decision, but I just wanted to make that point.
I have a question. For instance, I'm not sure if my other commissioners are bilingual or understand. Is there a policy that we have? For instance, if we have someone that doesn't understand English and they're in the public and they don't understand, do we have anything that we can, I guess, have in place so that we have some type of translation services for some of us here that may not be bilingual and can understand what's being said, or for the audience as well, that
No, we do not.
we don't have no policy in place?
We do not have a policy. In the past, at certain city council meetings, there was translation services, but as a broad city policy and practice, we do not.
I just want to say that it was mentioned in reference it's important to know, it was mentioned in reference to the trees. It wasn't a personal said about your person. I am bilingual, so I understood. It was in reference to the comment that was made earlier. So just reiterating, since we can't translate or make, but I think you've brought up a wonderful point that there's an opportunity for us to be providing translation services as a city because we have a very diverse community here. So thank you for raising the concern.
Are you Mr. Rodriguez?
Sorry, we really can't have
we have
public
to,
comments from the
we have,
from
if you're
the
going to
audience.
speak, sir, we have to have you come to the microphone. My apologies. No, I understood. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Any other public comments?
I have a few more in-person public comments. The next one is from Jose Garduño.
Mr. Garduño?
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es José Garduño. Soy residente de Indio por 35 años. La comunidad de Indio está creciendo demasiado. Entonces necesitamos para nuestras gentes de aquí de Indio, que son trabajadoras esenciales del campo, que tenemos hijos que están yendo a la universidad y está creciendo la ciudad de Indio. El proyecto que trae ahorita para la ciudad de Indio es muy efectivo ahorita porque nuestros hijos merecen de eso. Nuestros impuestos que pagamos y en la comunidad de Indio es crecer más el Indio. Pero si nos quedamos sin ese proyecto, no va a haber accesibilidad para las gentes que están viviendo encimadas en sus departamentos por el motivo de que las rentas muy caras, o pago la luz o pago la renta. Entonces, haciendo departamentos se va a ver más amplio Indio, va a haber más comodidad, más todo, más accesibilidad para que nuestros hijos sean más amplios y tengan mejor educación. Eso es lo que vengo yo a decir ahorita. Gracias.
Our next comment is from Carmen.
Hola, yo no tenía pensado hablar, pero quería hablar porque creo que hubo entendidos que no, o sea, hubo algo que no fue entendido bien. Estas son mis vecinas. Yo tengo 22 años viviendo aquí en Indio. Yo he trabajado de migrante, yo he trabajado en los files y en ningún momento estamos diciendo que no se haga este proyecto. Solo queremos que no sea tan alto porque sí vamos a perder la oportunidad de no vivir como vivíamos. He trabajado muy duro en este país para comprar una casa como la que compré. También me da tristeza mirar que Indio está haciendo como Los Ángeles, poniendo esas casotas tan grandotas. Solo yo quiero mirar que no nos miremos así como esas ciudades tan grandes y le pido a Dios que ustedes lo piensen porque si se va a mirar así, ya tenemos el edificio que está allí y luego este edificio tan grande, creo que nos va a quitar mucho belleza que tenemos en Indio. Y no estamos a contra de que la gente tenga donde vivir, porque yo fui una de esas. Yo fui a todos los estados de los Estados Unidos, como a 12, y fui a muchas escuelas. Y yo entiendo la educación de nuestra gente que tiene que crecer, pero tampoco perder eso, la belleza que tenemos aquí, que muchos vienen a vacaciones en Indio y todo se va acabando porque estos quieren hacer dinero, construir, no es tanto que quieran darle las casas a las personas de nuestra gente, solo que quién va a hacer el dinero para hacer estos edificios tan grandes. Todo.
Thank you. Our next comment is from Yvonne.
Thank you. I'm not professional at this, so I'll do my best. I didn't write notes, but there's one underlying thing here that upsets me, and that's like it's us versus them or whatever, and I don't think that's really how we feel on the street. I live on the street, and my house is the one that was right in the line of the where they were going to go through for the original plan, whatever. It's not just 6 people, okay? Every house on that block I have 6 people in my house alone. My neighbor's 2, the other on the other side is 4, so it's not just 6 people. And it's not us 6 or 20 or whatever we are against the rest of the world. We understand the need in Indio. We live in Indio, and we understand there is a need for affordable housing, and we understand that the lot behind us is an ideal place for that. All we're asking for is some mediating some of the height, possibly. oh, you don't have to go from 4 stories down to 2, but now it's not really 4, it's 5, because he just said there's another thing going on top. So we have 5 stories. Can't we bring it down to maybe 3? Or can we mitigate it some way that there's a little bit less height? Because if you draw the line of sight, you got to grow trees 60 feet high to really, for us not to be peered upon, okay? And I don't know that much about landscaping. I'm very pleased to hear that you're doing trees along there and that some of them are going to go, in 5 years, be 40 feet high, I think you said, or 30 or 40, whatever. But there are trees and used all over this valley, the ficus tree that is used in La Quinta around all the different country clubs for privacy that grow to 60 feet high. And if you're going to go 50 feet with the building, we should have assurance that these trees are going to grow to 50 feet, not 30 feet. It's not high enough. And the other part of that, and again, I'm not a landscaper, I only thing I know about ficus is that it grows this way, and it is like a wall into itself. So perhaps that tree could be considered, or another tree like it, that would mitigate a lot of that privacy, which is what we're concerned about. Privacy goes along with safety, goes along with all the other stuff that's going to happen back there. From my standpoint, I just want to say that it's not us against them or them against us. We want to be a part of the community. We want to accommodate what needs to be accommodated. But we would like to have some consideration, since we were there first, and when we were there, had no idea that Indio would ever allow a 4-story building. We knew people would build back there, maybe 2 stories at the most. Now all of a sudden, it's not 4, it's 5 tonight, I hear, and that's the first time I've heard that. So can we please have some consideration on the height, and we please have some consideration on what exactly those trees are and exactly how much privacy they're going to bring?
Your time has elapsed.
Thank you.
I have a final public comment from Teresa Ortiz.
Thank you for hearing me out. I have a couple of concerns. First of all, I was born here, and I was raised at the farm labor camp, so I'm not saying that I don't know what, poverty is. I do. But these are rentals, if I can ask you questions. These are rentals, and they're privately owned? Is that correct?
So you need to direct the questions to the city council, and then, to the commissioners, and then they can direct those questions to us if they see fit.
So this is privately owned rentals, is that correct? Do they know?
So the short answer is yes, they are rental properties. The developer is a private party. So the short answer is yes.
Okay. Also, I'm concerned about the congestion in that area. First of all, we just recently, right behind it, we have a new mental hospital that was built. I don't think it's open yet. I see cars there, but I don't see people. So there's cars going to be coming out of there. 400 plus cars from this project coming out onto 111. Mathis Brothers, McDonald's, Del Taco, all those stores are there. So that's going to be a big problem, I feel. The other thing is the 5 floors towering over the homes that are built there first. I just don't see a project building in that area. That should be just businesses, because they're all businesses. Why stick a project there? Not like we don't need it, but didn't Costco also, the apartments by Costco, I believe those belong to Indio, and they're also low income. So why are we building so many? Security. I believe there's only 5 police in the force right now. So how are we gonna, make sure that everybody is secure with all these low income homes? I don't know, I just don't see as many low income in the other cities, Palm Desert, La Quinta, Indian Wells. I don't think they have low income as many as we do. I don't know if you know the answer, but how many are there in Indio? I see them everywhere. There's also the jails, the detention centers. Excuse me, I don't normally talk in public. I don't know, there's just too much of this low-income thing right in the center of Indio. It kind of needs to move out closer to, not in this area. It just doesn't look right. I guess that's it.
Thank you. We have an online comment from Tim. Tim, you will have 3 minutes to speak. You may go ahead and speak.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
I
hear
don't know.
you.
Oh, excellent. I'm one of the 6 homeowners right on the south side of the project. I'm a little concerned that 200 units on 5 acres is too big a number. 200 families, and you got very minimal places for those kids to play. A lap pool for 200 families. And also, what's going to go on for stormwater? Right, we've recently had a few different rain events of 4 inches in a day. Right, it's currently an empty lot, and the water just soaks in. But now you're going to pave 80% of that, right? And I don't see anything for stormwater there. Obviously, there's been a lot of people that have said we need the low-income housing. I get it. 5 stories doesn't fit in the area at all. I don't know of any other 5-story building besides the jail in Indio. It's way too tall. And that's all I had. Thank you.
We have another comment from Carol Ortiz.
Hi, my name is Carol Ortiz, and I'm a senior in high school. So what I hear from people mention is like about the mental health facility and like the project that's gonna be happening. So this is stuff like we need because we don't have it in the valley. We have a lot of problems like homeless people, like yes, they have like, most of them have mental problems and they don't have help. So since we're making it happen and people have problems with it or concerns about it, I feel like, cause me, like, I do suffer from a lot of mental health and stuff, and it really like took me a long time to get help. I feel like people deserve the chance to get help, even though it's very hard for them to get money and to get resources to lead them to get the help. Because I do a lot of community service, so I see people struggle all the time. I help in the Coachella Valley Rescue Mission a lot, and I help in a lot of churches give out with food banks and stuff. So I see people struggle, and it's really sad because the numbers are increasing slowly, or mostly they're increasing really fast. So I feel like this project is a really good thing that's happening. And for like the people that mentioned like about their privacy and how like if they have the lights on, sorry, but you could get shades with that. And for the pool, you could get a pool cover easily if you want more privacy. And how you guys said there's gonna be trees. And the people that are gonna be living in the building, they might think of them as creeps, but yet again, you never know. Like there could be someone living right next to you that's like that and you wouldn't know. Like you shouldn't be judging someone because of how they grew up, because I know people would judge a lot because I grew up like that, and like the schools I would go to, some people would judge harshly and it would hurt. But like me, I'm going to college and people judge the type of sorry, I don't really talk in public. So for me to be here is really like important. But for me, like for people to judge me, like the type of people, like it hurts because I know how they grew up. Because I grew up in the labor camp and I know how they struggle. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? There are no more comments at this time, and all written comments have been sent to the commission and posted on our website.
Thank you, Paulina. At this time, we can have the applicant. If you'd like to answer have time to reboot some of the questions and concerns that the community had.
Oh, I'm okay. So I did take notes on some of the concerns. One of the easy concerns regarding garbage on site, that's something that if you'd like to email the City of Indio and Kevin, he could forward that email to me and we could reconsider where to put the garbage or what your concerns were about garbage. There will be...
Olivia, sorry to interrupt. You do need to speak to the
yes.
commission.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's a concern about garbage. We will have on-site management making sure that garbage isn't just overflowing, and that's generally part of management and making sure that the site is clean, and so no garbage overflowing and rodents or anything like that. In terms of really the ultimate privacy is that the pool and the amenity space is really at the center of the site versus in the back of the site, where there would be even, I think, more complaints about noise and events and spaces that are happening versus having the pool more centrally located inside. So, and then there was a lot of comments about crime overall. There are property managers that are going to be living on site, and I mean, they really make sure that there are services and that the site is going to be a safe and clean site. So I would just like to conclude on that. There's a lot of comments about trees tonight. I'm not a specialist on trees, but we can take commentary on trees and review that if you'd like as well. So those are my closing comments, but thank you everyone who showed up tonight, and it was important for me to hear everybody's comments.
Do you have some questions, following questions, or are we?
If staff has some information that we can share with the commission when you're ready, just please let us know.
I guess I have a few more questions that some of the community had asked.
And Chair, sorry to interrupt, but if before you go into discussion, it would be appropriate to close the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
And then at that time you can discuss and you can ask questions. If for some reason one of your questions does require a response from the applicant, you would have to reopen the public hearing for that purpose.
So go.
Well, I don't have questions for the applicant, but if you have questions for the applicant, we could do them now and then.
Yeah, can I go ahead and ask now?
Yeah, so it would be appropriate before you close the public hearing to invite the applicant back up if you have specific questions for them. If you do close the public hearing and subsequently have more questions, you would have to reopen it.
So I want to go ahead and keep it open because I have questions for the applicant.
But you can do it right now because the public hearing is still technically open, so you can invite the applicant back up to answer your questions.
She's up, so, okay.
Hello.
I haven't done this in be chair for a while. Okay. I guess my question is regarding the line of sight and the trees. As the applicant, is that something you're looking at reconsidering? Instead of waiting, I guess what they said, like 5-6 years for it to be for the height, is that something that you're looking at, maybe like a different tree as far as like line of sight, right? Is that what we're pronouncing it right?
Just to clarify, line of sight is a term that is utilized to portray the distance, the vertical distance between a building and another point, which could be a household or something else. I think your question, if I understood, Chair, was would the applicant consider installation of something other than the proposed screening that might grow over 5 years to a 45-foot tall height? A speaker suggested that ficus be installed that is fast growing and could grow to a height of 60 feet. And I think that's what you were saying.
Yes, I was. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Director Snyder.
I'm sorry to keep repeating the same thing. Like I will always say what I don't know very proudly. If I don't know it, I need to circle back with the landscape architect on your question, if that's okay.
So you're in the public hearing process. If Mrs. Platt would like to call upon her landscape architect to answer your question, that's certainly within your right to ask her to do that.
Amanda?
Hi. We can absolutely consider another species. I will point out, the species that we have provided on the plans has a growth rate of about 2 feet per year. And the ficus microcarpa that is commonly seen in the desert, the Indian laurel fig, also has a growth rate of 2 feet per year. It does get tall, so we can absolutely choose that if since it does get up to the 50-60 foot range, no problem.
And Chair, if I might also add, so Assistant City Attorney and I did a sidebar. It is within your authority to require the installation of the ficus tree or something similar. If you so choose, that is within your authority. You can require that in place of what has been proposed on the site landscape plan. So it is within the Commission's authority as a condition of approval should you decide authority.
Thank you, Kevin. Do you have any questions for any other comments? Okay. The other question I had, there was a concern in regards to the, I think it was the fire lane, about adding regarding a layer of safety. Do we have anyone from, is it?
So fire lane requirements are determined by the fire marshal. He has reviewed the project plans. It does not fall within the standards where a fire and only the individual in that position is authorized to make that decision under the codes adopted by the City of Indio City Council. So he has reviewed it and has accepted both on-site, the fire access off of Highway 111 and the on-site fire circulation as proposed. So as the technical expert, he has reviewed it and has accepted it. I believe that, and I'll defer to the Assistant City Attorney, but absent a compelling reason, factual reason, I believe the Commission is obligated to accept that recommendation or that review and recommendation of the Fire Marshal, but the Assistant City Attorney can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, Kevin's correct. We, especially as the City of Indio, we've determined that this is the person most knowledgeable and who's appropriate to make that decision. And unless we have evidence, for example, from a fire expert that indicated that conclusion was incorrect, that would be really one of the only bases, and that it impacted the health and safety of the community for that reason. That would be the only basis upon which we could insist on the inclusion of a fire lane in a different location. So just so we're clear. And I also wanted to indicate that, again, we can amend the conditions of approval regarding the trees. We can speak with the applicant about that. And I will confer with Kevin, but I believe if we take a short recess, we could amend that resolution if that's the only amendment that we make and not have to come back, because we are under the 5 hearing maximum rule with SB 330. So because this hearing was continued from yesterday's meeting was considered one of the 5 meetings. So if you guys want to make, and of course it's within your authority to make those changes and to continue the public hearing should you wish to do so. But if we keep it to something simple like that, then I believe we could get that done tonight.
But we don't have anyone from like the Water Authority right now that could give us any sort of like water consumption numbers, right? That there's certain things that we need to consider when planting trees. I just don't want us to go down a route that then we can't deliver for these reasons.
So the Commissioner Rodriguez-Ceja, just for the benefit of the public, we're referring to the Indio Water Authority. We have a water efficient model ordinance that all development in the city is required to follow, which basically is intended to encourage and require wise use and efficient use of irrigation. And so the process typically is, so this was reviewed by the Indio Water Authority as proposed. But they are required to submit a final landscape plan. They are required to address the Water Efficiency Landscape Model Ordinance as part of that. And so if it was demonstrated somehow that this, the ficus was an inappropriate consumer of water, then there would have to be an alternate consideration. However, I think the landscape architect that spoke earlier is correct. This is a fairly commonly used species in the desert. Like all species in the desert, even if they're desert appropriate, they all require a little bit more watering at the beginning to establish. And ficus do have significant root structures that grow fairly quickly. But this would all be reviewed as part of the follow-up technical review of detailed plans.
Okay. If we could take a short recess to have that added to amend this, correct?
So once you complete the public hearing process, and we would recommend if you have any deliberations where there might be additional changes you might want to make to the resolution, that you have that. And then it would be appropriate, as the Assistant City Attorney said, to take a short break of whatever duration you deem appropriate. During that time, we can work on the modified or new language that we can recommend for your consideration when you come back into deliberations before you take any action.
Got it, okay. It's been a while. I guess the other question is more to clarify the 3 to 4 story for our attorney. Can you clarify, give some background for public, I guess for the public at large in regards to versus 2 to 3, the 4 story in question?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how to frame it, except to say that the applicant, pursuant to the 100% affordable housing proposal that they've made, are authorized to build a building or buildings at that height or taller. They also have the ability to, they could request to build more units than they are building. And so simply put, the state has given the regulatory authority associated with this to essentially a shall approve model for local governments, and therefore this height discrepancy is kind of covered in the state law.
And to supplement what Jillian just said, so if this was a non-affordable housing project, within the mixed-use corridor zone, they would be allowed up to 6 stories. As you step away and move south into the property, you start to see those zone transitions I mentioned earlier, the neighborhood general and the neighborhood low. And if this was not an affordable housing project, they would have to transition the height down to be basically representative of and comparable to the height of the adjacent property. Or they would also, the other thing that they would potentially could do if this again was a non-affordable housing project is they would be required to set back 100 feet. Because this is an affordable housing project, what I just described is not applicable, as Jillian just mentioned. That 100-foot standard is also not applicable. But as I mentioned earlier, the applicant volunteered to establish an 80-foot setback rather than the 100. Theoretically, and legally, well, I will let the attorney speak to the legal ramifications, they would not have to follow that particular setback standard as well. However, they voluntarily did it. We worked with them to establish that 80-foot setback. So there is a physical distance of 80 feet between property line to the structural elevation wall. So that 80 foot is in place, not 100 foot, but 80 foot.
What Kevin said is legally correct.
Thank you for clarifying. Any other questions?
No questions.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and, if you don't have anything else to add, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I don't have anything. Go ahead and close it.
And Chair, again, when you're ready, there's a couple comments that I would like to make just to clarify a couple things, but when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to point out, so the city does have standards for trash enclosures. Those trash enclosure standards include that all trash enclosures have to be covered with a roof structure. All trash enclosures have to be constructed out of CMU block wall. All all trash enclosures have to have a secure gated access between the top of the wall and the top of the, or the bottom of the roof line. There has to be a barrier so that neither animals or people can get into the enclosure. That can be mesh, that can be something else, but we have specific standards that say when you design a trash enclosure, you will design it a certain way. If the commission is concerned about the trash enclosures being too close to the property line, that also falls within your authority to require that the trash enclosures be either located further away from the southern property line by some distance, or another consideration. So similar to the landscape conversation we just had regarding an alternate landscape species, you also do have within your authority to mandate a certain separation between the southern property line and any trash enclosures.
So that would obviously be an additional condition of approval, or we would amend a condition of approval that is similar to what we're describing. And so that just, I wanted to describe the mechanism by which we would do that.
Another point, there was concern raised about stormwater. Similar to every municipality in the state of California, we have stormwater standards that have to be implemented. This is something that, the simplest way to say it is that you have to design the site so that there is no increase of stormwater from the property. So basically you have to design it to its vacant condition in this particular piece of property. That can be done primarily two ways. One can be a surface stormwater facility, one or more. The other is what we call underground stormwater facilities, and those are literally underground facilities. So the applicant, at the end of the day, and this goes through a very detailed technical review with our city engineer, will ultimately be required to demonstrate how they intend to comply with our adopted stormwater standards. They will have the choice through that to do a surface stormwater facility, one or more, or to do one or more underground facilities that have to be done. Typically a hydrology study has to be done, for example, and there's a detailed plan that has to be put together by a registered engineer in the state of California who will then have to demonstrate compliance to our adopted stormwater standards. So at this level of review, what we require is what's called a conceptual water quality management plan. It kind of shows generally how water quality will be accommodated and addressed on the property and how it will be distributed off the property. But the ultimate review is what we call our engineering process. So if following this process, there are several more follow-up processes. One of them is the building permit process, where you actually review the construction plans. The other is the engineering approval. That's where we have a grading plan. So we look at how the site's going to be graded ultimately. That's where we have the detailed water quality plan. That's where we have what's called a PM10 plan. That's how are you going to manage air quality during construction so that adjacent properties are not negatively impacted. And there's a very detailed plan that has to be put together that not only has to be approved by the city, but also has to be approved by the Air Quality Management District. So just to address that concern, there are very detailed technical reviews that would occur if the commission ultimately decided to approve this project, but those come later in the process, if you will. And then for the benefit of the commission and those that might be interested, there was a question about the number of affordable units that the city, so the city has a legal obligation through the adoption of its housing element to plan for 7,812 new housing units in the city between October 2021 and October 2029. We did that. In fact, we were the first city in the Coachella Valley to have our housing element certified by the state of California, which is kind of a big deal because usually you don't get it first time out of the gate. But you guys did a good job, the council did a good job, and the community did a good job that participated in that, in working on that plan. Out of that, 2,963 of those units have to be affordable. Well, now, affordable is an umbrella term. There's actually, within that affordable classification, 4 different categories. And we had to plan for a certain number of units based on income level. So X income level has a certain number of units, and there's 4 categories of those. To date, just since the adoption of the housing element, we have approximately 786 affordable housing units that have been entitled. One is under construction. That is the one that folks are familiar with on Highway 111, south of Highway 111 along Jefferson Street. That's called Arroyo Crossing. There's another project that this commission reviewed approximately a year ago called Avenue 44 Apartments. That's in Northeast Indio. That's 180 units. And then the project before you this evening is 206 units. There are other affordable housing, older affordable housing projects in the city. I don't have those numbers at hand, but for purposes of compliance with our adopted housing element, as I said, 2,963. So in a year, a little bit more than a year, we are making progress towards those numbers. We are also making progress towards the remaining numbers, what we call the market numbers. You as a commission have, in the last year, approved over 3,000 market housing units. So I just want to put that out for the benefit of the commission and the interested parties to this process. And then the final thing is there was a question about line of sight. I just want to make it clear that as it stands today, neither in the City of Indio Unified Development Code nor the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan is there a requirement to do a line of sight study. It is a legal question as to whether we could actually require that for an affordable housing project, but I will defer to our Assistant City Attorney. So you as a commission, not this evening, but at some point, if you wanted to consider that, you could agendize a conversation and ultimately develop, like you've done in the past, a recommendation to the City Council. And if the City Council accepted your recommendation, then we could go through that, what we call that text amendment process, to amend the plans to require something. With the caveat, as I just said a minute ago, it may not apply to affordable housing projects because of the allowances and the rights that affordable housing projects are afforded by the state of California. So, perhaps.
And I can confirm that we do not have a standard within our code, within the specific plan that was adopted for Highway 111, that would allow a condition of approval associated with this this concern. Simply put, upon which to assert a mandatory condition at present. And again, just as Kevin as the Community Development Director just said, that can be amended in the future, but at this point, and it certainly wouldn't apply to this development, right? So just to be clear, like that would be something that you would consider as an addition to your current planning documents, and then you could incorporate it into your considerations. I also do not know offhand whether that would even apply to affordable, especially 100% affordable housing projects that they qualify for a density bonus. They're allowed to modify up to 4 of our conditions. There are a number of ways to get for them to not be required to comply with the same provisions that a market rate development would comply with, and therefore it's hard to say that whether or not it would apply in the future.
And my final comment is there were concerns raised about the height of the structure. As I mentioned in my staff report, the total building height is 51 feet. The living space is 4 stories. There's an additional 11 feet that is beyond that incorporates the mechanical equipment, the air separation areas that are required by building code, and also fire safety access considerations. So the total building height is 51 feet. The livable space is 40 feet.
Thank you for clarifying that. Director Snyder, do you have any questions? Before I ask a very, very, very important one, understand the need of housing. Do we have the will serve letter from IID? Because I understand we have some current challenges with some of our affordable housing that are currently in the queue. And I know that we have a JPA with IID, and I just want to make sure if there is a will serve letter, and will there be enough infrastructure for energy for this project?
You've asked the $64 million question. So the applicant did receive a will serve letter. We have a copy of that. However, until the time that the applicant applies for and goes through the application process for actual service, I, as a representative of the city, not a representative of Imperial Irrigation District, cannot tell you if there's adequate capacity. If there isn't, typically what Imperial Irrigation District will do is they will identify what they call mitigations. That mitigation can range from building a new substation to extending an electrical service line to other mitigations. So the applicant, as they go, if they do go forward, assuming any action by the commission tonight, they will have to go through that process with Imperial Irrigation District. It's a process that is separate from the city process, and it is a process the city has no control over. Now, the chair did reference a JPA, or Joint Powers Authority. That was an action that was taken by the City of Indio and Imperial Irrigation District to establish what is called the Indio Electrical Finance Authority. It is a financing mechanism to start the efforts toward 4 of the 9 substations that have been identified that are needed in the City of Indio over the next roughly 20 years. So that Indio Electrical Finance Authority has the authority and did issue bonds to the bond market. Those bonds were sold, and the proceeds from those bonds are now being utilized to order the equipment that is necessary to build 4 of the 9 substations. And that will happen over a period of time. And at the end of that, we will have additional substation capacity in the city. There's 4 locations that have been chosen. In part, that has been chosen to kind of balance out, if you will, the rest of the system so that there's reduced impact and demand on the system. But again, the applicant will have to go through that process with IID, or Imperial Irrigation District, and ultimately the applicant is responsible for determining how and when and at what cost to themselves the services will be provided.
And without going too far down the rabbit hole of IAFA, I just wanted to point out that it's a long-term process, as Kevin kind of alluded to, and the reason that the city and IID acted on it so quickly is because of the delay in receiving any of the necessary infrastructure products to begin installation. I believe it's at least 24 to 48 months. So just so we're aware, that is a progress point, but it probably will not be able to be utilized as soon as we would like it to.
Okay, if there's no other questions for staff, then we'll go ahead and start deliberating. Who would like to go first? Would you like to go first?
I'd like to go first. I want to thank everyone. Quiero darles las gracias a todos los que vinieron a darnos sus comentarios. Thank you, everyone, for coming and giving us your comments. This is a very important process, being civically engaged. I want to thank the young lady who came and spoke, the young ladies who spoke from back there. This is incredibly important that you are participating in these conversations. And trust me, everything that was said is taken into consideration very deeply. And I think what really came out of this is a learning exchange opportunity. There were a lot of issues that were raised. The first one, I think somebody online said that the public space or the gathering space is not adequate. I agree. Let's build some parks. We have a land that we own just to the west. We can do that. This is an opportunity to build community. We raised the question of power. We have an issue in our city. These are taxpayers that are coming to our city that are going to allow us to pay back these bonds that we need to take out in order to build the substations. It's not always as clean and as nicely as we would want this to be. There are various communities that need to be served in this city, and we are doing our best and our due diligence to accommodate for all the communities that live. This particular side, I live south of 111. This is District 5, which is notoriously I see as not having enough of these projects. Here's an opportunity for us to build these types of projects, bring in more taxpayers to the city to help us with the issues that we're having. There were issues that were raised of security, and I want to say let's not build a narrative that because these are communities that are of low income, and I want to say even if you look at those median household income in Riverside is $70,000, we're talking that a really large percentage of those folks need to be making at a household income of $40,000. That is entry-level young professional. These are not criminals. These are not people that will be a nuisance or affecting our safety. So I just want to make sure we're not creating a narrative that by building these types of projects, we are creating issues for ourselves. We're actually here to benefit because we're creating the opportunity for other families to come into our wonderful city and enjoy what we enjoy, which is thriving here. And for these taxpayers to contribute so that we can continue providing services, so that we can continue to respond to the needs of our city. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone, and truly this is really a good opportunity for us to learn how to best serve each other. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Ceja. Do you have any?
Commissioner Ceja made a great point that, you know, we don't want to build up these divisions. You know, we want to include everyone, and we want to keep people in our city, keep them from moving to other communities because they can't find affordable housing in our community. And we want to bring people from other communities to our community because they can't find affordable housing where they're at. I think that the developer has preemptively, you know, taken some mitigations to kind of try and keep everyone happy as far as the setbacks go. As far as the trees go, I don't think that we should necessarily say it needs to be this tree, but I think that they have a plan for putting in trees with a high growth rate that will offer some, you know, privacy in short time, and I think that's great. I think, you know, everything else meets plan. I think it's a great opportunity to grow our affordable housing here in the desert, in Indio.
Thank you, and again, I'd like to thank everyone who came out to speak. Thank you so much for working with us with our changed times for these meetings. I also, again, echo this, the comments and support that my fellow commissioners have as well, and the need of attainable housing. We have way too many of our residents who work. They also, you go, the whole, what our motto was at one time was to live, work, and play in the city of Indio. And again, this is something that fulfills our goals plus the state goals that we need to meet for the state of California. And again, this has been a great learning experience for both sides to come together and work with the applicant to come to some type of understanding or resolution and understanding what the law says, what we currently have as far as policies concerned, and what we can do to work together to kind of meet some of those concerns and challenges. Again, the only thing I would like to see is if we can get, or if the applicant is willing to work with staff in regards to the landscaping, just something that's not going to take so long to grow, and to help address some of those concerns that we have of the residents that are here.
So, Chair, you have two options. You could create a condition of approval that specifies a certain landscape type, as Commissioner Luciano mentioned, or you could direct staff to work with the applicant in the final landscape approval process, which is a condition of approval, to further analyze and identify the most appropriate species, taking into account the water efficiency model landscape ordinance that we do have to comply with and the applicant has to comply with. So you kind of have two avenues of consideration, either of which would be legally appropriate.
If it's okay, I would like to, if it's okay with my colleagues here, if they could give you the staff to work with the applicant and coming up with those recommendations.
And I believe you heard the applicant's representative indicating that they were willing to work with staff and the city. So we're happy to do that, and I'm sure that they've heard your considerations and your concerns, and we will make sure that we work with them and have an outcome that is beneficial, that does result in a significant growth opportunity for whatever species in the shortest amount of time possible, ensuring the health of what is there, number one, to make sure that it's long lasting, but also that is water efficient. So we're happy to work with the applicant.
Any other?
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
We don't want to sit and say that putting this down, if it comes back and it's not water efficient, we did nothing. So we'll let staff and the applicant work on finding the best possible solution to what has been raised.
Okay, with that, any other?
No, if you're willing, open to, entertain a motion, I'd like to make a motion to approve, case file number DR 22-12-517. Oh,
Just for purposes of record, we do ask that you cite the resolution number, which is actually on the screen. Commissioner, if you would like to use that screen.
yes. I make a motion to approve resolution number 2081, conditionally approving case file number 22-12-517.
A second.
Roll call. Commissioner Rodriguez Ceja,
Yes.
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Chair, I might recommend maybe just a
brief
few minutes
recess?
recess to allow
Yes.
folks to leave if they want to, and any bathroom breaks that anyone needs to do.
Let's go ahead and is it okay if we take a 10-minute recess?
That is your prerogative.
Okay. I gotta check my puppy. She's by herself right now. I adopted a little Frenchie, and she's by herself. This is like my second day, so I'm like checking on her. Oh, my mom.
I just got a few months ago what is she? She's a doodle of some sort. She's a Yorkie poo.
Oh, they're little. This is her. They named her. Her name was Melanie, but I'm calling her Melly. But she was by herself for like 3 hours, so I was like, Mom, I was taking her, go check on her. So she took her home with we're a family of Frenchies.
Yeah.
So this is our other one. His name is Chester, but my grandma calls him Che. So they're playing. And then my grandson has one, and his name is Muggsy. Oh. we're going to go ahead and start our meeting again. So go ahead and, do I hit? Sorry, I'm trying to remember how to do this again. But I guess we're now at staff comments.
Chair, just to note, there were no action items, item 6. So
Okay.
there are no study session items, but if the commission has comments before staff gives any comments, this is the appropriate time in the agenda.
No comments. Okay, no comments either.
Okay, just some brief staff items. Just in the vein of affordable housing, I did want to share that the City Council did take action at the recent City Council meeting pertaining to the Arroyo Crossing affordable housing project. As stated in the public record, that project was hit with an unexpected cost for the extension of electrical service, approximately $2.5 million. That they had not planned for in the project pro forma. Unfortunately, this came so late in the process that they did not have the contingency to cover it. So they approached both the City of Indio and Riverside County for assistance, and the City Council did approve a $1.67 million development impact fee deferral loan. It's actually called a residual cashback loan payment agreement, and what that basically means is that over a period of time, roughly 30 years, they will pay back the loan at a specified interest rate, but not having to pay those fees will free up cash flow for them. In order to be able to address that, they've also made a request for $500,000 to Riverside County that is being considered at the end of this month, and then the balance of that amount they will cover out of available funds that they have. Without that, they would, it's approximately 1.68 mile line extension that they had not planned for. They were assuming a significantly lower cost. The applicant told the council he was expecting $300,000 to $400,000. To support affordable housing, the continued opportunity for affordable housing, the City Council did take action and did approve that agreement. So I wanted to share that with you. We do have a number of projects that are being worked on right now. We expect that several of them may come forward in project consultations. These are large-scale projects. We would have potentially another affordable housing project. We have a proposed market rate housing project. We have a very large project that is being worked on right now, approximately 200 acres at the northwest corner of Interstate 10 in Monroe. And that's projects being worked on. They've submitted. We're working through the process. We do anticipate bringing them for project consultation in the near future, so you can hear from them about their vision. And then we have a number of projects that are seeing successes that have been built that you participated in. The Canopy at Citrus down on Avenue 50 in Jefferson has been quite successful. They're at 96% build out in approximately 14 months, which is pretty unheard of. The City Council did give them an extension on phase 2, which is the multifamily component. Because of some of the challenges that all developers are experiencing right now with materials and labor, they weren't able to focus on phase 2, so they were given another year on their design review to be able to focus on that. And so they have started looking at options for that in terms of how to build that out. We also have several inquiries on other properties that you have looked at in the past. The Crossings, which was a project adjacent to Citrus Plaza. That project has gone for sale in the market. The original developer decided not to proceed forward. It's being looked at by several parties. We're getting contacted quite frequently about that. And other projects, either longstanding or projects that, as a result of kind of the turmoil in the mortgage interest market, we've seen some projects either change hands or going to change hands. So as things change and if there's any potential changes in design plans, we'll certainly bring that to your attention. Ultimately, it'll come back to you for your consideration, either in the form of a decision, as you did tonight, or a recommendation to City Council, depending on the nature. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them about the status of things in the city that I'm aware of.
Well, I guess with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be on February the 28th, and same time, same place. So I have a motion to adjourn, or just,
Make a motion to adjourn.
all right, someone.
And technically, you do need to vote on the motion.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I got to warm up to this again. It's been a long time. We have a roll call, right?
A roll call vote, yes.
I think somebody needs to second.
Oh, well, I'll second it.
Second.
Oh, go ahead. He's second. Nico seconds it.
Commissioner Rodriguez Vega,
Yes.
Commissioner Isiano,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries.